I'm going to show you how to build this free cash flow valuation chart in Google Sheets. Let's get started, and let's start with the blank canvas. So let's first create a blank spreadsheet. We're going to go over to File, New, and Spreadsheet. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create 4 separate sheets down here. So we're going to hit this plus sign 3 times. We're going to call the first sheet Output. We're going to call the second sheet Free Cash Flow. We're going to call the third sheet Input. And we're going to call the fourth sheet Data. Let's start with the Output tab. In cell B2, I'm going to write in ticker. And to the right of it, in cell C2, we're going to type in the ticker symbol we want to analyze. So let's start with Johnson & Johnson. And I'm going to select these 2 columns and I'm going to center the data to make it look better. Okay, we'll come back to the Output tab. Let's move on to the Free Cash Flow tab. Here in cell A1, we're going to type in year. And just below that, we're going to type in the current year, which is 2025. And from there, we're going to create a formula. We're going to go equals 2025 minus 1. And we're going to drag this all the way down till we get to 2015, because we want 10 years of data. In column B, we're going to type in the ticker symbol we're analyzing, so Johnson & Johnson, J&J. And I'm going to select these 2 columns and center them to make them look better. Now we need to look up the free cash flow per share for Johnson & Johnson and type that information in here. So let's pull up a browser window. And we're going to head over to roich.ai. And here in the search bar, we're going to type in J&J, Johnson & Johnson's ticker symbol, and we'll click on the stock. And you want to make sure that you're on the Summary tab. So here we can scroll down to the financial data, and the third row shows the free cash flow per basic share. So let's make our spreadsheet a little bit smaller so it's easier to copy the data over. And we're just going to take these values from roich.ai and we're going to type them in here. For 2025, we're just going to use the trailing 12-month data. And the free cash flow per share for the trailing 12 months is 6.81. In 2024, it was 7.5. 2023 was 7.39, 6.58 in 2022, and 7.52 in 2021. Now we're going to scroll left here to pull up more data. 7.67 in 2020, 7.57 in 2019, 6.96 in 2018, 6.63 in 2017, 5.74 in 2016, and 5.85 in 2015. Okay, now that we have the free cash flow per share for the full 10 years, I'm going to make the spreadsheet bigger again so it's easier for us to work in. And we're going to move on to the Input tab. And the Input tab is actually going to look very similar to the Free Cash Flow tab. So in cell A1, we're going to type in year. And in cell A2, we're going to type in 2025, the current year. From there, we're going to create a formula, and we're going to select the current year minus 1. And again, we're going to drag this down until we get 10 years here. So all the way down to 2015. And I'm going to select column A and B and we're going to center them so they look better. In column B, instead of typing the ticker symbol in now, we're going to type in FCF for free cash flow. And we actually want to bring over the free cash flow for Johnson & Johnson here with the formula. I'm going to explain why in a second. Let's start with the formula. So we're going to do a horizontal lookup. So we're going to go equals H lookup, open parentheses. And the first thing is the value that we're going to look up. So we're going to reference this from the Output tab. So we're going to select the ticker symbol J&J. Then you want to type in a comma. And now we want to select where we want to look up the data. So we're going to head over to the Free Cash Flow tab. And I'm actually going to select the whole spreadsheet. So this is going to look for Johnson & Johnson in the first row. And then we want to enter in a comma. And now we need to assign which value we want to bring over. So for 2025, I want to bring over the value from the second row. So we're going to type in 2 here. Then we're going to type in a comma and we're going to type in false and close the parentheses and hit enter. And now we have our free cash flow for 2025 for Johnson & Johnson brought over here. In column C, we're actually going to make a reference to make our formulas a little bit easier. And in cell C2, we're going to type in 2. And from there, we're going to create a formula and we're going to select this 2 and we're going to add 1 to it. And we're going to drag this down all the way for each year that we have. And we're going to select column C and we're going to center this column to make it look prettier. Now, before we drag this formula down, we need to make some adjustments to it. First off, we want to hard-code some of the values in here. The first value being the reference point. So we always want to look up the ticker symbol from output C2. So we're going to add $signs in front of C and in front of 2. And we always want to look in this table in the first row. So we're going to hard-code the first row, and we're going to hard-code the last row too. Now this 2 here, we're actually going to change it to the 2 in the reference column. And we're going to hit enter. And now we can drag this formula all the way down, and it should bring over the free cash flow per share for each corresponding year. Let's go ahead and do that. And voila, we have the free cash flow per share for the last 10 years for Johnson & Johnson. Now the reason we have the free cash flow tab and the input tab, and they look very similar, is to help us with automation. So let's say we're done analyzing Johnson & Johnson, and we're done looking at its chart, and we want to look at a different stock. Instead of manually typing in the free cash flow per share here, we can simply list multiple stocks on this tab here, and automatically bring them into here, simply by switching the ticker symbol on our output tab. Let me show you how that would work. So let's say we want to look up Home Depot. And I'm just going to type in some random numbers here for the free cash flow to show you how this works. So now we have Home Depot's hypothetical cash flows in the free cash flow tab. So when we head over to the output tab and we change this ticker symbol from J&J to HD and we hit enter, the data on our input tab automatically switches to the free cash flow for Home Depot. And you can do this for as many stocks as you want. So I'm actually going to delete this data since it was hypothetical, and we're going to go back to the output and change it back to Johnson & Johnson. Okay, so we have our free cash flow and we have our input. The final step is to work on the data tab. And here we want to look up the historical price for our stock for the last 10 years. So we're going to do this by using Google Finance. And here's the formula we're going to use. We're going to go equals Google Finance, open parentheses, and the first data point in this formula is the ticker symbol we're analyzing. So we're going to reference this from the output tab. So we're going to go on the output tab and click on J&J. Next, we're going to type in comma. Now we need to tell Google Finance what we want to pull. So we want to pull in the price. So we're going to type in price in quotation marks. And then we're going to type in a comma. The next thing we want to do is tell it the time frame that we want to look for. The first date you need to type in is the start date, and the second date is the end date. So instead of typing in specific dates here, I'm going to make this a rolling 10-year period. And we're going to do this with a simple formula. We're going to type in today, open and close parentheses, and we're going to subtract the number of days in a 10-year period. So there's 365 days in a year, and 365 times 10 is 3,650. But since every 4 years there's a leap year and we have an extra day, we're going to type in 3,652. Next, we're going to type in a comma. And we're going to make the end date a formula as well, and we're going to make it today. So we want to pull in the most recent price available for the stock. And we're going to add one more parenthesis to finish this formula, and we're going to hit enter. And voila, now we have 10 years worth of price data from Google Finance. We're going to select column A, and we're going to clean up these dates to look better. So if you head over to the number formats here, and you click on date, it'll clean up all the dates for you. And we're going to do the same thing with the price. So we're going to select column B, and we're going to go to the formats and make them a number format with 2 decimal points. And I'm actually going to select a bunch of rows here, and we're just going to center them to make it look prettier. We're also going to highlight row number 1, and we're going to make these values bold because these are our headings. And we're going to head over to view and freeze, and we're going to freeze the first row. So whenever we scroll down, we can continue to see our headings. Okay, now that we have the date and the close price for the last 10 years, let's create all the other values that we need. The first thing that we need to do is to extract the year from the date. So we're going to type in year here. And we're going to use the year formula. So we're going to type in equals year, open parentheses, we're going to select the date, and we're going to close it. And now this gives us the year for each corresponding date. And we're just going to hit OK to fill this all the way down. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring over our free cash flow to this tab. So we're going to type in FCF for column D. And now we're going to do a vertical lookup. So we're going to go equals VLOOKUP, open parentheses, and we're going to look up by the year. Then we're going to hit comma. And we're going to head over to the input tab, and we're going to select the entire worksheet. So we're trying to look up the year in column A, and we want to bring in the values in column B. So we're going to type in comma 2 because we want to bring over the second value in this workbook. Then we're going to type in comma, type in false, and close this, and hit enter. And now we have our free cash flow for 2015. And we're going to drag this all the way down. Actually, I got ahead of myself. The first thing we need to do is hard code the references in our input tab. So we're going to add a $sign before this 1 and this 1000 in the input tab. Let me highlight all these values, delete them, and now drag this down again. And here we go. We have our free cash flow for the full data set. The next thing we're going to do is calculate the free cash flow yield. And the free cash flow yield is simply the free cash flow divided by the price. And we're going to autofill this all the way down. And we'll select the whole column and make this a nice percentage. The next thing we're going to do is create the 5-year average free cash flow yield. Let's make this column a little bit bigger. So there's roughly 252 trading days in each year. So to create a 5-year average free cash flow yield, assuming that there's 252 days in a year, so 252 times 5 equals 1260. So we want to select the first 1260 values and create an average for them. So since we're starting in row 2, we're going to head down to row 1261. And we're going to create our first 5-year average right here. So we're going to go equals, average, and select all of these values. And just to make sure that we have 1260 values, we can highlight them and use this little function in Google Sheets to show us that the count is 1260. Now we're going to copy this formula all the way down to the most current date. Okay, so now we have all of the data that we need to actually compute our fair value, our premium and discount price. I'm going to skip over a column here and we'll make column G a little bit smaller. So in column H, we're going to measure our fair value. In column I, we're going to have our discount price. And in column J, we're going to have our premium price. So we're going to start measuring them in that same row, 1261, because we actually need our 5-year average to measure this value. So to measure valuation based on free cash flow yield, you want to compare the current free cash flow yield to the 5-year average. If the current free cash flow yield is higher than the 5-year average, the stock is potentially undervalued, and vice versa. But I'm not interested simply in the valuation. I want to have a dollar value assigned to that valuation, so I can compare it to the actual price. So to accomplish this, we're going to create a formula. We're going to go equals free cash flow divided by the 5-year free cash flow yield. And this gives us a fair price based on the free cash flow valuation. And let's make this a nice and pretty number. So for the discount, you can use whatever percentage you're comfortable with. I like to use a 15% discount. So we're going to go equals fair value times 0.85 to give us a 15% discount to the fair value. And let's make this a nice and pretty number. I'm going to use that same 15% for the premium. So we're going to go equals fair value times 1.15. And let's make this a nice and pretty number. Now we want to copy these values all the way down to the end. So instead of dragging them, I'm just going to copy them, scroll all the way to the bottom, select all of these cells, and just copy them in here. And now we have all of the data that we need to actually create our chart. So let's create our chart. We're going to need to select all of the data from the most recent price to the day we started measuring the 5-year average free cash flow. So we're going to select all of these values and we're going to select all of these columns. And we're going to head over to Insert and click on Chart. And we get a pretty ugly looking chart here. So let's clean it up a little bit. The first thing we want to do is change this from a column chart to a line chart. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to assign a value to the x-axis. So I want the x-axis to be the date. So we're going to assign column A to be the x-axis. And you can see the dates appeared on the bottom. The second thing we want to do is clean up the series section here. So as of right now, each of these columns is a series in this chart. But we actually only want to keep the price, the fair value, the discount, and the premium, and get rid of anything else. So let's start removing. We're going to remove the date, so column A. We're going to keep column B because that's our actual price. We're going to get rid of column C, which is the year. We're going to get rid of column D, which is the free cash flow. We're going to get rid of column E, which is the free cash flow yield. And we're going to get rid of column F, which is the 5-year average. And now it's starting to look more like a valuation chart. You can stop at this point and actually use the chart as is, but I like to change the colors a little bit. So let's head over to the Customize tab. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into this chart style menu. The first thing I'm going to do is make the lines a little bit smoother. And the second thing I like to do is change the colors of these lines. So I like to look at my price as a black line, my fair value as a green line, my discount price as a blue line, and my premium price as a red line. But you're more than welcome to use any color palette you like. And the last thing I'm going to do is add some labels to our legend. So we're going to click on this black line here, and we're going to call this the actual price. We're going to label the green line as our fair value. We're going to label the blue line as our discount, and the red line as our premium. And if you want, you can also add a title to the chart. So we can call this the FCF valuation. Okay, now I'm going to click on this chart and I'm going to copy it. And we're going to head over to the output tab and we're actually going to paste it here. And we're going to head back over to the data tab and delete this chart from here. There's too much going on in this data tab. I'd rather look at the chart here on the output tab. So we can see from this chart for Johnson & Johnson that the stock is currently trading for a premium to its fair value. But it would be nice to know what price the stock is trading for today and its fair value. So we're going to add some more meaningful data to this tab here. The first thing we're going to add is the price. And the second thing we want to bring over is the fair value. And then we're going to measure our valuation. Now there's two ways to do this. You can simply type in a formula here that references the last row on this data tab in column B. The problem with this, since we use the rolling 10-year period to get our price, this actual cell here may not always be the last price that Google gives us. So there's actually a different formula we can use to bring over the last value in column B. So we're going to delete this here. We're going to head back over to the output tab. And we're going to type in equals index, open parentheses. We're going to head over to the data tab and we're going to select column D. Then we're going to type in a comma. And we're going to type in match, open parentheses, 100, up arrow 100, comma, and select column B again, close parentheses, and when I hit enter, I should see this value, 175.45, be brought over to the output tab. And there we go. Now we can copy this formula, and we can paste it for our fair value, and simply change the reference from column B to column H. And here we go. Now we have our fair value. So to measure our valuation, we're going to create a simple formula. We're going to go equals current price minus fair price divided by fair price. And let's change this to be a percentage. So now we know that the model is telling us that Johnson & Johnson is about 15.66% overvalued today, based on its historical free cash flow valuation. And if you want to make this look even better, we can add some conditional formatting to this cell here. So if this value is greater than 0, we're going to make it red and bold, and let's get rid of the background highlighting. And let's add another rule. So if the value is less than 0, we want it to be a green color. And we'll hit done. And now anytime the stock is overvalued, it's going to be a red percentage here. And anytime the stock is undervalued, you'll see a green value here. So let me quickly show you how easy it would be to value another stock using this spreadsheet. We're going to head over to the free cash flow tab. And let's say we want to pull up the valuation for Lowe's. So we're going to go back to Roach.ai. And we're going to search for Lowe's. And from the summary tab again, we're going to copy the free cash flow per share. So the trailing 12 months is 15.5. Then we have 16.98, 13.99, 13.66, 14.53, 14.77, 5.53, 7.64, 6.04, 6.38, and 5.16. Let's make our spreadsheet bigger again. And now all I have to do is go back to the output tab and type in Lowe's sticker symbol right here and hit enter. And give our spreadsheet a minute to pull up the data. And voila, we have a free cash flow valuation chart for Lowe's. And we can see that Lowe's is potentially 17% overvalued right now. So there you go. That's how you built this free cash flow valuation chart in Google Sheets. If you're not handy with spreadsheets and this is too complex for you, I do share a copy of this valuation tool with my premium Substack members. Let me show you what that looks like. If you sign up for my newsletter, Quality at a Fair Price, and you upgrade to a paid subscription, which is $5 per month, you get access to this Quality Dividend Stocks tab here. On this page, you can grab my stock valuation tool for free. And here's what it looks like. It actually has a few extra bells and whistles compared to what I showed you today. So I used 12 years of free cash flow history and graphed 7 years of data. I also have some automatic formulas to calculate an expected rate of return for each stock, and a nice little table down here showing you the growth in the free cash flow per share. My spreadsheet comes pre-populated with the free cash flow history for 227 dividend growth stocks. In addition to this free cash flow valuation tool, as a paid member to my Substack, you also get access to my high-quality investable universe. If you click on this link right here, you'll gain access to a live valuation spreadsheet for 80 companies which I think are high-quality businesses. This spreadsheet is updated live anytime the stock market is open. And every Sunday, my paid subscribers also get an update from me on any changes in this investable universe. Let me show you what that looks like. So here's the latest update that I sent out. It shows you which companies had a change in their fair price estimate, which companies had a change in their earnings growth forecast, and most importantly, which stocks had their valuation rating change. So here's the 7 valuation rating changes from last week, and the 36 companies that had their fair price updated. There were 21 companies that had a change in their earnings growth forecast. And the final piece of information is the change in the expected rate of return. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. And also check out my newsletter, Quality at a Fair Price. Thank you for watching and see you next time.